over 50% of the products sold on Amazon are sold by individual sellers like myself. And in this video, I'm going to show you every single step you need to take to start your own Amazon FBA business and make over £1,000 per month. Now, this is a super detailed guide. There is nothing like this available on YouTube at the moment. So I would appreciate you guys if you could scroll down and hit that like button and we can get started with this guide. So how to make £1,000 per month with Amazon FBA. I'm going to go through every single step, and this PDF is available for you guys to download completely free. There is no payment. You can download this for free, and I'll show you later on in the video exactly where you can download this from. So the first thing you need to do is to find a suitable business address. And the reason I want you to use a business address instead of your home address is if you use a home address, then when a customer looks up your company name, they could potentially find out where you live. By using a business address, they'll never be able to make that connection. So what you can do is either find a virtual office online or maybe contact one of your local business centers. This is what I do. I go to my local business center. I pay them about £20 per month. That gives me an office address that I can use and also a mailbox for post as well. So that's the first thing you want to do. Then once you've got that business address, I want you to set up a limited company. It's a really simple thing to do. It takes you about 15 minutes. There's lots of different websites you can use, or you can go direct to the government website and do it on there as well. Now, your limited company does not need to match your brand name, and that's something to keep in mind as we go through this guide. Now, once you have your business address and your limited company set up, you are then ready to open your business bank account. And the reason I want you to do all of these three things first is so that you are fully ready before you open your Amazon account. And the reason for that is once you've opened your Amazon account, you want to try to avoid making any changes to your core details. Because if you do, it can cause issues with your Amazon account and it can take days or weeks to resolve it. So get everything sorted first and then open your Amazon account and things will be a lot more straightforward for you. So that's the basics out of the way. The next thing you need to do is purchase some product research software. Now, this is an essential step. There are lots of different pieces of product research software out there. The main reason you need it is to find good products on Amazon. So let me give you an example of how it would work. You'd find a potential niche on Amazon. So this would be chopping boards in this example. You'd then use the piece of software that you're using. I personally use Helium 10, and then you can get into the real details of that niche to assess whether this niche is a good opportunity and also a good match for your individual circumstances. Now, I've got other videos that dive into all of these details in a lot more detail, and that will help you understand product research and how to do it. But the key thing is, do not try to get away with not using software, as you really will struggle. Whenever it's Helium 10 or something else, make sure you're using good product research software. Otherwise, it will hinder what you're trying to do with your Amazon FBA business. Now, once you've got that software in place, you're then ready to find your first product. So I've actually given you some criteria here. Now, I don't very often give out exact criteria, but as this video is trying to give you a guide on how you could potentially make £1,000 per month, I wanted to give you a criteria that I would potentially use to achieve those goals. So the monthly revenue I've set as £3,000 and the monthly sales I've set at 150. The reason I've put the monthly sales at 150 is the higher number of units that you need to sell per month, the harder it is to launch that product. So for example, if you picked a niche where you needed to sell 500 units per month, that is going to cost you a lot more money in pay-per-click to actually launch that product in the first place. Whereas if you only need to sell 150 units per month, that's about 5 per day. You can do that with PPC without spending an absolute fortune. So for a new seller, I recommend quite low demand niches as it helps minimize your financial risk and exposure. The price point here I've put at £20, and if you times that £20 by your 150 units per month, that will give you your £3,000 monthly revenue. Now, these figures are just general guides. You might find a niche where you need to sell 200 units or 250 units, or the price point isn't exactly £20. That's okay, as long as the figures stack up and meet the goals that you're aiming for. The minimum profitability I've set at 30%. This is a very good rule of thumb to start with. If you can get to say 35%, that is a great place to be as well. If you're below 30%, it doesn't give you that much wiggle room if you need to spend a lot on PPC, or maybe you need to reduce your price a bit. So that's why we always recommend at least 30% profit margin as a starting point. Now these next 2 points, the maximum weight and maximum dimensions, we've got these as 1.9 kilograms and you've got the dimensions there in centimeters. And the reason for this is if your product is above either of these dimensions, the Amazon fulfillment fees goes up in different tiers, and this would put you into a very expensive tiers, and all of a sudden it's very difficult to maintain that profitability at 30%. So make sure your product is below 1.9 kilograms and the dimensions are below that, and your profitability should stack up. The next thing I want you to do is to check for other sellers in the listing. You want to see 5 other sellers like you achieving similar goals. And that is your proof that it is possible. If there are no other sellers hitting the goals you're targeting, then there's no evidence that it's actually possible. If you've got 5 other sellers doing that, it gives you a big landing zone to aim for. So that's why I want to see at least 5 of them in the top 20 organic results. So that's excluding the sponsored listings, so that you know it's possible within the niche that you're looking at. Next point is to avoid seasonal products, because you don't want to have the hassle of managing this with your first product, trying to guess how much stock you're going to need or not need as the sales kind of peak and trough throughout the year. You want to check for brand or Amazon domination. So if you're selling in maybe a sporting niche, so you have all the big sporting brands in there, it's going to be very difficult to compete against them. And in some niches, Amazon will dominate the niche as well. So try to avoid those niches, as it's much more difficult to compete against those types of sellers. And then finally, check the products for any patents, because some products you shouldn't actually be selling because other people own the patents for. See whether the category is gated, and also whether there's any restrictions or whether the products are actually prohibited on Amazon. You're not allowed to sell them at all. And again, I've covered these in other videos. So point 7, I then want you to develop that product. So this is pretty much the most important step throughout this entire video, is you need to differentiate your product. A lot of people will just copy what everyone else is doing and hope they sell, but the key is you need to visually stand out in the niche. Imagine yourself as a customer. When you go to Amazon, you see all of the products there. Why are you going to click on your listing over everyone else? Now, one way to do this is to dive into the negative reviews of existing listings, look at all of the pain points that existing customers have, what have they not been happy with, and try and improve them with your product. There are many other things you can do to differentiate your product, but it's something to keep in mind at all points. How is your product going to visually stand out in this niche? Now, the next step is to choose your brand name. Now, some people might want to do product specific branding, and that's okay. My personal recommendation, especially for a new seller, is to pick a generic brand, a brand that doesn't really mean anything you can use to sell multiple products. That's what I do, and it's worked successfully for me, and I know other sellers that have done that as well. But if you do want to do a brand specifically for an individual product, that's okay as well, but my preference is to use generic brands. Then once you've got your brand name, you can get your logo design done. You can go to somewhere like Fiverr.com, probably pay £20 to £30, and you'll get a really nice logo. Now, once you've got your brand name and your logo, you want to submit your trademark application. This is very important, as you need a trademark with Amazon to apply for something with Amazon called brand registry. And this allows you to protect your listing, which is so important with this business model. So once you've submitted your trademark application, within a few days, the trademark office will issue you with a pending number. And then once you've got that pending number, you can apply it for the brand registry. Now, in the past, I used to say wait for your trademark to be approved, but it takes 3 to 4 months for that to happen. So if your trademark is pending and you have got a number, then you can apply for brand registry, and Amazon will accept a pending trademark number. So get that all underway, and then we can start to push through these remaining steps. So you've found the product that you want to develop, you know what changes you're going to make. You now want to start contacting suppliers via Alibaba.com, which I've covered in other videos. And you want to contact these suppliers to get a general idea of how much these products are actually going to cost, the minimum order quantities, which are usually negotiable, the customizations, whether they can actually make them, and also the lead times. You don't want to be getting involved with a supplier that has a 4 or 5 month lead time. Once you have that information, you can also start contacting freight forwarders. So freight forwarders is just a fancy way of contacting shipping companies that are going to get your products from China to the UK. Now, some suppliers will do this on your behalf, and they'll do what's called DDP shipping, and that's where the supplier basically charges you in advance for things like customs duty, the shipping costs, VAT and stuff. So that'll be called DDP. So if your supplier is quoting you DDP terms, then you don't need a freight forwarder at this stage. But often you'll be on what's called FOB terms, where the supplier will get your goods to the port, and then your shipping company or your freight forwarder will get the goods from the port in China to the UK. So once you've contacted the supplier and the freight forwarders, if necessary, you'll then have all of the cost for your product And that is when I want you again to double check the profitability to make sure you're running at least 30%. I see it far too often when people try to make a product work when the profitability was never really right in the first place. So at all times, ensure your profitability is running above that 30% level that we spoke about. The next step is I want you to buy 3 to 5 of your competitor products. So if you're launching a chopping board, come and find 3 to 5 of the top selling comparable products to what you're going to be launching and buy them. And the reason for this is it will save you money. So rather than buying lots of samples from different suppliers, you can do this with just Amazon listings. So you get the listings from Amazon sellers, you get them next day as it's Amazon Prime. You can compare them and you can see what you're up against, and that will help you form your exact product specification. You can then go to your supplier and get your samples done to that specification rather than going to the suppliers first and having to go through a few rounds of samples. It's going to save you a lot of time and money. And also, if you want, you can actually return those products to Amazon as well. So it's a good way of saving time and money and knowing exactly what you're up against. So once you've done that, you can finalize your product specification. You can then order the final sample of that product specification and any packaging you're interested in from the supplier. So you can get your actual products in hand. So if you've got 2 or 3 suppliers you want to compare the product from, that's absolutely fine. By all means, do that. Then once you've got those final samples from the suppliers, you can test and compare them. And then if you do need to make any final tweaks, maybe you want to get one final sample with all of your branding, all of the packaging that you can get sent over for final checks. And also you can use it for your product photography as well in advance before your bulk order gets here. So that's why I usually do a very final sample with my chosen supplier. Now, once you've gone through all of that, that is the point that I tend to negotiate fully with the supplier. They know that you're a serious customer if you've gone through this process. If you've purchased samples in the past and you've tweaked them and made customization, they know you're a serious customer. So that's why I prefer to negotiate now rather than earlier on in the process. And this is when you can try and drive that unit cost down further and improve that profitability further. Now, while those negotiations are going on, because it will take maybe a couple of days to do this via Alibaba, going back and forth with the supplier, I want you to go through these few steps. Number one is I want you to order some GS1 barcodes or apply for GTI and exemption. My personal recommendation is to just order some GS1 barcodes. They will cost you, but it's easier than going the GTI and exemption routes. So there are a few more hoops to jump through. The next step is to do some keyword research. So use Cerebro from Helium 10 to do this. This will give you the core keywords you need to create your basic product listing. And the reason I want you to create your basic product listing before you place your bulk order, it will help highlight any of those potential restrictions that I spoke about earlier on in this tutorial. So create your basic product listing a few days before you place your bulk order, because there's any issues, you'll be aware of it before you commit a large sum of money. So once all that's in place, you can then place your bulk order. Now, I prefer to order 3 months of inventory, as this gives me enough time to launch the product, establish a sales history, and also hopefully stay in stock whilst I order the second batch of inventory. Now, if you don't feel that confident and you're happy to go out of stock and pay for a PPC relaunch when the second batch arrives, then maybe order 1 to 2 months of inventory. But my recommendation would be to go for 3 months of inventory, and make sure you create a contract and upload that to Alibaba, specifying exactly what you've agreed with the supplier. So don't just assume they're going to give you what you've asked for. Make sure you spell out you want to be exact dimensions, exact weights, exact material choices, what packaging, inserts, barcodes, everything that you've discussed with them. Make sure it's in that contract, including lead times and cost, anything you can come up with, keep it in that contract. And that's when you pay your deposit, which will usually be either 30% or 50% of the overall cost. Now, if you're placing a small order, some suppliers will ask for 100% upfront. If you're spending a few £1,000s, I would certainly be expecting to only pay a deposit and pay the rest on completion. So once the order's been placed, you can then get the packaging design done and send that to the supplier, and also the product insert design done and send that to the supplier as well. Both of those you'll probably get done on somewhere like Fiverr or any other place you want to outsource that to a designer, and this is a type of work you can do yourself. You'd also then download your FNS KU, which is the barcode Amazon will give you. So basically we buy a GS1 barcode at this stage, we then use that to create the product listing, and then Amazon will issue their own barcode, which is the FNSKU, and that is the product barcode that goes on the actual product. The GS1 doesn't necessarily have to go on the product. We're also going to be arranging a product inspection so that when your product has been manufactured, someone can look at the products in China before you pay the final balance on that order, and also before it gets shipped to the UK, and they can flag any issues and the supplier can get those resolved. It will probably cost you around $200, but it's well worth it if you're spending a few £1,000s on inventory. You also then, if I scroll down here, create a shipping plan and send carton stroke pallet label to the supplier stroke freight forwarder. So what does that mean? Well, within Amazon, you need to tell Amazon that inventory is coming. So you need to create a shipping plan. Then Amazon will issue you with labels to go onto the cartons or pallets and pallets, depending on the size of the shipment. And then you'll either give them to the supplier or the freight forwarder, depending whether the supplier is doing DDP or whether you've done FOB and you're coming via freight forwarder instead. Now onto the next page. This is only a 2-page PDF, so we're nearly there, so stick with me. At that point, you're probably ready to pay the balance of the bulk order. Once the order has been completed, you've done the inspection and you're happy with everything and it's ready to be dispatched for the UK. Now, you may also have to do an EORI registration. You can do this online. It only takes a few minutes, so something you can do at any point. You only need to do this if you're using a freight forwarder, as you'll be the importer on record. But if your supplier, you're paying them DDP, the supplier is technically importing it on your behalf, so you don't need this at this stage. You can also arrange your professional photography or 3D renders. I've been using 3D renders quite a lot recently for smaller products, but you may want to pay out for a professional photography as well. That's why I always get that final sample, so I can take care of this step whilst the bulk order is being manufactured and shipped to the UK. At this point, you might want to do some more additional keyword research and complete the product listing, so you can do the full listing this time. Now you've got your photography, you've done your full keyword research. You can use a tool called Scribbles from Helium 10, and that will go through the entire process to ensure you use all of the keywords you've researched in the listing that you're creating. Once the product is due to arrive at the UK ports, you'll be paying any import costs, unless of course you've gone DDP, because you'll be paid in advance. But if you're doing FOB, your freight forwarder will invoice you at this stage to pay any shipping, customs and VAT due on that product. They'll then process that shipment and send it to the Amazon fulfillment centers. At this point, you want to set up your PPC campaigns. This is what you're going to use to advertise your products on Amazon and generate the sales velocity needed to get your products organically ranked high in the search results so you can make those profitable sales. You only really need one good exact match campaign with 10 to 20 really good, highly relevant keywords, and you'll have a good chance of getting ranked. And it takes a good 3 to 4 weeks to launch a product. And I budget £5 per sale. So going back to my original recommendation of 150 units per month, if you're trying to achieve that, you're going to need to sell 5 units per day. So maybe you want to spend about £25 to £30 per day on PPC, and that will give you a reasonable chance of hitting the sales velocity you need to get ranked organically, as your organic sales are where you make the most profit, as you don't have PPC spend on those sales. Now, once you've started achieving a few sales via PPC, don't do this when you have 0 sales, but when you've got a few sales, this is when you can reach out to a couple of contacts and start to arrange some 5-star reviews. Now, you have to be super careful about who you ask to do this. It can't be anyone that Amazon can find a connection to between you and them. So no one you're close to on social media, no one you've ever shared an address with, no one you've ever shared an internet connection with. That is about the best steps you can use to be safe. But I've got more details on this in other videos. Now, once your PPC's been running for a day or two, you need to regularly check what's going on, see which keywords are spending all the budget, are they generating good sales or not, and you have to tweak your PPC on a regular basis as this launch goes on. And again, this is something I've covered a lot more in other videos. This whole video here is about trying to give you all of the steps you need to follow, and then you can go through each one of these in more detail as and when you get to each step. Once your product is launched, you need to track your organic ranks. This is the whole goal of a launch. You're using PPC to drive sales so the organic ranks improves. So make sure you're tracking the organic ranks for all of the keywords you're targeting. So maybe you're targeting chopping boards or wooden chopping boards or glass chopping boards, whatever it is. Track your organic ranks for those keywords so you know whether your launch is working. So I use Keyword Tracker from Helium 10 to do this. If your launch has gone well and after 3 or 4 weeks you're making really good sales, you're making organic sales, and your organic ranks are where you want them to be, you may consider slowly reducing your PPC. So don't just turn it off because your sales velocity suddenly dropped. Your organic ranks may drop as well. So reduce your PPC, maybe about £5 every few days, and then see what happens to your sales and what happens to your ranks. And you're trying to find that balance between the minimum PPC spend you can get away with whilst maintaining your organic ranks. That is the overall goal. The next step will probably be at this point is to order your second batch of inventory if you think this product is going to work out. Of course, if things haven't gone very well, you may not want to do this, but if things have gone well, then you're going to be wanting to make this decision after 3 or 4 weeks. So it gives you enough time to get that next batch ordered, manufactured and shipped to the UK, hopefully before your first batch goes out of stock. Throughout this whole process, you also want to be monitoring your listing. So if you receive any negative reviews, you get an alert, or maybe if another seller tries to jump onto your listing, which is called hijacking, which I'll cover in another video, then you get these alerts so you know what is happening. So it's very important you monitor your listing. You don't just leave it there in the background, as all sorts of things can happen if you're not keeping an eye on it, and you can use alerts from Helium 10 to do so. Point 44 is declare your VAT exemption status. So you'll probably get some emails about this from Amazon once you've made a few business sales. They'll start talking about your IDR, which is your invoice defect rate. So whenever you make a business sale on Amazon, you're supposed to create an invoice for that business customer. But if you declare your VAT exemption status, then automatic business invoice is activating and IDR will not be a problem for you. The next step is to set up automatic unfulfillable inventory removal or disposal. So what this basically means is any of your goods that maybe either get damaged in the warehouse or get sent back by the customer, how do you want those disposed of? Do you want them sent back to you, or do you want Amazon to dispose of them for you? That's completely up to you what you prefer to do. I used to get them returned to me, but I'd end up with a cupboard full of goods that I didn't want. So now I just get Amazon to dispose of them on my behalf. Now, once your brand registry has been approved, you can add something called A+ content to your product listing. This allows you to add more content and more graphics and more imagery to your listing to make it look more professional. So it's certainly something to look into as your listing progresses. You also want to purchase business insurance, so if someone manages to hurt themselves with your product, you've got some sort of protection in place. And finally, you're going to want to find an Amazon FBA specialist accountant to help you process all of the profits that you're going to be made in your first year of starting your Amazon FBA business. And then at the bottom of this PDF, we've got some resources and discounts. So we've got a link to the full FBA Elite course. We've got a discount code there, FBA Elite 20 for Helium 10, so that will give you 20% off for the first 6 months. And we've got some other links and bits there as well. So if you guys want to download this PDF, like I say, it's only 2 pages. It's completely free. Just go to fbaelite.com, sign up. It's completely free. Go to the resource section and you'll see it's at the top here because I've just created it. Template, how to make £1,000 per month with Amazon FBA. Click through to this, and by the time you guys are watching it, the video that I'm talking in now should appear here, and you can click this download button here and this will download the PDF for you guys to use. And hopefully you guys can follow this through and this will help you make your first £1,000 per month with Amazon FBA. So hopefully you guys have found this video helpful. If you did, I'd really appreciate you scroll down and hit the like button. It's going to be a long time to put this together for you guys. That'd be much appreciated. If you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see the method that I use to find products to sell on Amazon, I'm going to pop up a video now. It's the best method I use, and I'll see you guys over there.